Thanks for tuning in to the Replatform podcast sponsored by Amplience and Klaviyo. You're listening to myself, James Gurd, and my co-host, Paul Rogers. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, good. Thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Looking forward to another episode. This is going to be an interesting one. Not an area of my core expertise, so I'm going to learn loads. And thanks everyone for tuning in. If it's your first time, we hope you enjoy it. Do subscribe, you get regular alerts. We drop an episode every week, and we'd love a like on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, etc. So our topic today is building the right Martech stack for an e-commerce retailer. So a quick summary and setup before we introduce our wonderful guest. So the Martech landscape is cluttered. I think the marketing technology landscape, Supergraphic, that keeps going around, states is around 5,000 vendors, but in reality it's probably a lot more. Modern businesses want agile tech stacks, greater speed to market, chasing the elusive single customer of your data, but achieving it isn't always that straightforward, especially when you have legacy system dependencies to unpick. And tech selection isn't always well orchestrated. Sometimes there's silos where systems get selected in isolation without company-wide integration. That creates bigger challenges for all the people trying to knit the data and those customer views together. So in this podcast, we're sitting down with an experienced data and technology consultant to discuss some of the common issues of Martech setups, how to address them, and what a good stack looks like. So let's introduce Depesh. How are you doing, sir?
Morning. Not bad. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for joining us. I know some of our audience will know you, some won't. So let's give people a little flavour. So who are you? What do you do, mate?
So what do I do? I guess I'm between the intersect between ad tech, martech, analytics, and measurement. So at the moment, I'm pretty much working out my next step. So I left my last full-time job. So I'm doing a bit of consultancy at the moment. So I'm just trying to work out what's next at the moment.
Great. And I'll ask the first question. And just to get like a little bit of definition up front and for the audience and also for me, I guess, what do we mean by Martech in the kind of e-commerce context?
I guess it's the combination of ad tech and martech that can deliver against business and marketing objectives.
So have you got an example? Because some people come into this like without understanding any terminology. So give some ad tech, advertising technology, marketing technology. Can you give an example of a couple of systems that would fit in either of those?
So I guess it works out I guess most brands, e-commerce brands, would have like a TMS, a tag management solution, which could be Google Tag Manager or an Adobe or Telium, and you also have Google Analytics. Then on the ad tech, martech side of it, with intersect side of it, something maybe like a customer data platform, which stores all your first party data, any other data, and allows you to go and activate it against your marketing objectives, against your paid social or your programmatic or your email channels as well.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess in terms of kind of implementing this kind of technology stack, like when brands or retailers kind of move towards kind of a broader or like best in class Martech stack, what usually drives them to do that? Like what are they trying to achieve? Like what challenges are they kind of facing?
Yeah, so I guess the challenge is not all Martech can do every job. For example, speaking, a Google Analytics can't do attribution, or a CRM, i.e. like a Salesforce, is not really ready-made for a customer data platform, even though it does that. So I guess we get stuck in the trap of a certain tech can do everything, but it can't. And also, I guess we've also been falling into the trap where a lot of the tech has been free. So like the worlds of Google Analytics and the worlds of Google Tag Manager. Now, a Google Tag Manager to move to server side, there's a cost associated to it. Or from moving from Google Analytics 3 to Google Analytics 4, now utilizing BigQuery, a data warehousing cloud solution, there's a cost attached to it. So in most cases, there's not enough thought about the tech and how it falls in the wider ecosystem. So we get sucked into it. So I guess there needs to be a bit more of a thought process in terms of what are the requirements. So I guess we all get Google Tag Manager and we get Google Analytics and we try to fudge it around to make sure it give as much as you can, but it can't. So a general approach that I've used so far, I've worked with brands, is maybe for any free or paid tech that you're using, create a scorecard which covers certain elements: the role of the tech, the key benefits, the integrations, the business value, other solutions or competitors who are in the landscape, and also who the users are. And that just briefly explains the solution of the tech, what it can provide, and who can utilize it. And also, it's one of those things is documentation really isn't a big thing that we look to do. It just ends up taking up dust, but it becomes quite important. Then on the back of that, if you start doing a matrix, so you start looking at different areas. So you do like implementations versus value, cost versus value, and cost versus implementation. So you do that for each tech. Then you can stack it up, and it gives you it'll start building a picture of the different techs and how they can provide different ways in terms of the different matrices, from implementation versus cost versus value, cost versus implementation as well. So it just gives you that nice picture. But also, with all that, it doesn't give you the context. Obviously, you need the context of where the business is, where the business is going in terms of the maturity as well.
Great. And I guess like kind of sub question right off the back of something you said at the start. So attribution is obviously like a really hot topic at the moment, and I guess makes sense that falls into kind of the scope of this type of project that you're working on. What could like a typical attribution stack look like, or like tool or like approach? And I know there's kind of different ways of approaching this, but what kind of technologies and tools are you typically working with on that?
So, I mean, I guess the word of attribution is probably slowly dying away, just because attribution is more associated with third-party cookies, and obviously third-party cookies are slowly fading away. There's different ways of attribution. I look at it. There's probably more in-platform attribution that you can probably do within Google Analytics or other platforms that provide it. So I guess there are other solutions out there. One solution that's probably more growing is more of a marketing mix model, so or otherwise known as econometrics, and that requires huge amounts of volume of data. You need 2 to 3 years of data and the amount of data behind it, and it's also really, really valuable. But there are other tools out there, like Ringside, our friend Russell McCarthy, who provides a very good solution, and away from the Google stack, away from GAFA, Google, Amazon, Adobe, Facebook, outside of that. And it just gives you a solution to look at measurement, allows you to build models, allows you to answer your business questions around it. I guess the big thing around that side of it is it allows you to start building a marketing data warehouse with all your data around it, and that side of it. So there's no real solution around attribution. There's no single solution. It just depends where you are. You can utilize, marketing mix modeling, which requires loads of volumes of data, or you can utilize tech like Ringside around it.
And I think for a lot of people, like the Martech ecosystem feels really, really complex. There are so many systems, so many types of system. You talked about DXPs, analytics, and as you said, not one system doesn't do everything, but you have all these crossovers where a system that might be able to do some of the user journey piece and some of the analytics, but doesn't do it all. Others that are just purely around data layer, tag management, etc. So I think the ultimate question for people is, how do retailers simplify this? What should they focus on? What are the most important building blocks, and what typically drives results in your experience?
Okay, so the building blocks of a Martech ecosystem. So I guess you have to think of it. It is pretty much a plug and play system. So I guess an e-commerce retailer needs to build the core. So the core is built around a tag management solution. Then you have a cloud solution in terms of a marketing data warehouse. Then you have a customer data platform. Then potentially it leads into a data clean room at a later point. So those 3-4 become the core. In essence, once you have that core, it shouldn't really make any difference whether you change your DSP, change your web analytics tool, because if you got your infrastructure of your data around your cloud solution and marketing data warehouse, it should become an easier plug and play. And also, if you got a tag management system and you got a good tag management system set up, changing a solution shouldn't be as complex as well. The challenge around that is never really as straightforward. That's where the focal point of any the focal point of any Martech ecosystem should be around measurement. So having your analytics in good order, having your data governance in good order, and also nailing your measurement, and that should become the gold standard. Once you have that, then you have a better understanding of which tech to utilize and where to go to. So if you have your scorecard system that I mentioned earlier, and you have your matrices, and you have a good understanding of your measurement, that's your pinnacle. Because the reality is most businesses will have a tag management solution and a Google Analytics, more or less, or if not, or another free solution. But in terms of measurement, for most businesses, everything falls within Google Analytics. And I think maybe for a lot of businesses, you need to move away from that and move away from Google Analytics being your core measurement, and utilizing a solution like Ringside or any other solutions. There are loads of solutions out there. Utilize that and nail your measurement, get your measurement in good order to understand what is truly happening with your business and your marketing around it. Then you can understand the values of getting a CDP. And slightly jumping ahead to CDPs, I guess we jump ahead to CDPs without really understanding the metrics behind it and how we want to improve our business around it. So is it loyalty? Is it churn? Is it, repeat purchases? I guess we can easily jump to it without really understanding the true value behind it.
Well, actually, we'll part that CDP, customer data platform, on, because there's a question I want to get into on that in a bit more detail in a bit. But you make an interesting point about measurement. I think this is such a clear point to bring out to people: is what are you trying to achieve? What are your goals, objectives? What are the metrics that sit at the back of them? What data points do you need? How are you going to use them? I find a lot of people jump into technology without always having the clearest vision of how they're going to use it, and that can lead to a compromise. You might pick a system that you don't actually really need, and you're paying a license for an expense. Maybe you don't really need a customer data platform yet. You're not ready as a business for it. You can set up all of the tracking and the analytics in the background to capture the data into warehouses, but you don't need the CDP because you're not business ready. Avoid that license cost, focus on the other bits of the stack first. I mean, do you find that as well? Sometimes people aren't ready to use some of the other systems, and they should be parking that decision for now.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, measurement is one of those conversations. The challenge is, I guess, we get stuck into the worlds of Google and Facebook in terms of what they can provide us. It doesn't really provide you the insights that you really need, and I guess you really need to strip it back and understand the kind of data points that you need. And if you really think about it, the kind of data points you need isn't overly complex, and we probably have that. It's just all scattered over into different platforms or into different reporting solutions. In essence, you just need to bring all those data points into one solution, and it starts giving you a better view of your performance. And I guess the challenge is there's so many different ways of measurement. It can get quite overloading for businesses to understand what do they need. Everyone talks about attribution, but what is really attribution? Then if you go into the world of marketing mix modeling, you need huge amounts of data. It's not easy. It can potentially be quite slow because you might only do it once a year or twice a year, but that doesn't really give you the insights you need on a weekly, monthly basis. Then you also got incrementality, which is really good as well. But that also has its own challenges as well in terms of how you go about setting it up and how you go about doing it as well. So you could do incrementality via the platform basis. Facebook, I mean, they do have a solution around it, and it's really good because obviously of the data they have. But obviously, you don't want to necessarily trust the data that's coming out of Facebook as well. So it becomes a bit of a chicken and egg, and
trust. You just said trust and Facebook in the same sentence.
I know, yeah. So yeah, so because it becomes everything around measurement can be quite daunting as well in terms of the data requirements, the care, how do you go about measuring it, and also it's just more legacy stuff. And I guess that becomes a challenge. Is businesses have been used to measuring and reporting in a certain way, and if you change it and you change it to a new solution, that's going to cause quite an impact and quite a change in terms of what the numbers have been saying or were saying. So it also becomes quite a bit of a cultural shift as well in terms of measurement.
how should brands go about kind of building out their measurement needs and kind of doing the initial scoping process?
So yeah, good question. So I guess the first part is understanding clearly what are your business and marketing objectives from that. Then you strip it back in terms of what are the measurement requirements on the back of that. So I guess if you think about it, for most businesses, they want to be able to understand on a simple level is what is the impact of my marketing on my business on that side of it. So is my marketing driving any incremental impact on my business? So if you look at it on that basis, is the kind of data that you really need is split out maybe on a daily, weekly, monthly level is your sales data, your revenue data, your profitability data. Then from there, you probably need your channel data. So anything around what's driving channel performances. It could be like impressions or TVRs or reach, stuff around that. And that all needs to be clearly, mapped out in terms of how you wish to break that data out. So that's I'm really simplifying it, but from a pure measurement performance level and in terms of understanding your marketing impact. Then obviously, then you got other data points like NPS, or then you got your first party data in terms of your customer data, and also in how you segment that out as well. So and then it becomes in terms of different requirements in terms of what kind of measurement you want. So one could be from a marketing performance side of it, then one could be from a customer centric point of view as well. And what kind of data you require. Then it's a mix of quant and qual data as well. So I guess if you think about all the different data points you have, how in terms of how do you collect that data, and what does all the different data points give you?
What is Amplience? In a word, it's freedom. The freedom to build a digital experience as limitless as your vision. Create, preview, schedule, and manage all your content in one easy place. Find out more at amplience.com. Amplience. Experience freedom.
So something that James and I talk about a lot is kind of the vendor selection process and taking a set of requirements and then kind of assessing different vendors and then ultimately selecting a vendor or a series of vendors. How should teams go about approaching this?
Good. So the first step would be internally within the business. I guess you just need to firstly understand what are your requirements as a business, where are you today, and where do you need to get to. I guess that's from. I think that needs to be clear. And whether you can approach vendors directly or you can approach an external agency or consultant to help you around it. And they can probably help you understand the landscape of the different kind of techs and vendors are out there in the marketplace, and the ones that can probably help you in terms of your business needs and your business requirements. Then I guess it's a conversation with the vendors in terms of understanding where you are, where do you want to get to, what kind of data do you have, in terms of who's managing the service. Is it internally as an e-commerce retailer you're managing, or are you going to be going to an external agency, or the vendor going to be managing it? So those kinds of questions come up in terms of costings and proposal side of it, and in terms of how do you want your data, how do you want your measurement requirements, in terms of that to be able to help you and your teams to get the insights that you need. So for an example, what I mean by that is obviously everything is going to be impacted by cost. So having attribution, example, reporting, or any form of modeling reporting on a daily basis the cost is going to be probably far dearer than if you do it on a weekly or monthly basis. But also understanding how are you going to utilize that data. There's no point getting the data if you're not going to be utilizing it in the right ways as well. So realistically, maybe a weekly, a monthly level of reporting is probably maybe going to be more suited to most businesses than on a daily basis. And then you take it from there. So it needs to be taken on a step-by-step journey, but I think you need, from a business point of view, you need to understand all your data requirements, what data you have, and understand that. Then from there, the platforms and the vendors can help you, guide you, or the consultants can guide you to take you on that journey. Without you knowing what data you have, the value of each data set that you have, what are your business requirements, where you are today and where you're going, then it's going to be literally, then you're going to be lost in terms of the process around it all.
That makes sense. And my next question, so we talked a bit about single customer view, and I think in bigger businesses, you need deep pockets and a lot of money to try and achieve this. And obviously you've got data in lots of different places, et cetera, whereas in a smaller business, maybe slightly less complex business, there's obviously different approaches. There's kind of like standalone products, et cetera, that can maybe get you half the way there. Like what is a good compromise? Like what are SMEs or what should SMEs be focusing on, and how should they approach this?
So this is referring to a single customer view, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So on that point is to get into a position of a single customer view, it requires having all the customer data in one place. So I guess we talked about understanding all your different data requirements. So from your CRM data, your sales data, your transactional data, your touchpoint data, your customer feedback data, your NPS data. Either that needs to be stored within a cloud solution, so a marketing data warehouse, or that data needs to go into a customer data platform. And they're both quite significant investments in terms of where you go with. So I guess then it just depends on what are your requirements. And I'm guessing something like a customer data platform can give you both sides of the solution. Is they can give you the view of the single customer view, and then you can also go and activate against it as well in terms of your marketing activities as well and your campaigns. But also, I guess it depends on how much you value that data, and you want to store it within a marketing data warehouse as well. So there's no real perfect answer solution to that, because the cost and investment of either solution is going to be quite significant, whether you go for a marketing data warehouse or you go for a customer data platform, unless there's another tech that can provide you everything all in one go, but there is going to be quite a significant investment. But if you want control of and ownership of the data, then it's your marketing data warehouse. But if you want to be able to have that view of the data and to be able to go and activate it against your campaigns and build a customer journey around it, then that becomes your customer data platform as well. So you could probably negate having a marketing data warehouse and put all your data into a customer data platform. Then the challenge is whether you want a tech to be able to do all the measurement around it as well, where we talked about maybe you need an independent measurement solution to be able to help you to understand what's been happening. So it becomes a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because then you could end up, I'm a fan of having an independent tech solution, measurement solution, but also becomes a double whammy in terms of the cost side of it as well. So
I'm just trying to think about some of the clients I've worked with, and for a lot of them, they're not at customer data platform level. They don't have the capabilities in house, or they don't have the resources, or it's a costing, as you said, because it can be expensive knitting all that data together, getting it in the right formats, and getting it outputted into the right channels. So I've seen some move down the route of where they've said, well, do you know what? We're just going to focus on e-commerce, and we're going to get a platform like Emetria, which is a data layer in, which is a data platform from e-commerce data, and can enable them to build out data views for e-commerce. Do you see any SMEs, not the big enterprises that have bigger data teams, do you see other SMEs doing this, or what have you seen where people are trying to do some element of the single customer view, but not in its entirety?
So in essence, you could utilize it in terms of your CRM plus your business intelligence, which I think you've mentioned, in terms of that, because I'm guessing what you could do is, we are very much embedded into the world of GAFA, Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook was. So a mix of your CRM plus your BI plus a solution, I know we're going to talk about data clean rooms at a later point, is that can give you your elements of your CDP. So you don't have to so you don't have to go and pay a significant investment around it. But if you have a good CRM solution and you have good data in there and you have a good BI solution around that, then you can just plug and play with different solutions in terms of working with different vendors and different publishers at different points in the time to go and activate your campaigns against it as well. So it's having that core element around it. Then it becomes much easier. So you don't necessarily have to have the significant investment up front. It's just utilizing the tools you have with you, because every business will have a CRM, every business will have a business intelligence solution, or most likely have a similar solution, whether they own it or they're working with someone on it. So they'll always have that. So it's just working around getting that part of it right, and the data flows and the measurements and the data layers around it. Then every tech now will have some sort of an API connection that you can utilize as well to go and activate against.
So just for some context, what sort of market leaders are we talking about? What vendor is a good example of a customer data platform?
So the one that I've come across is probably, I think it is marketing, is Treasure Data. They're very good. I've also come across the ones like Segment, or the other one is called mParticle. So the different forms of different CDPs around it, and every CDP has a different niche around it in terms of what they can offer for every different businesses. There's so many around them. Like obviously, like the likes of Salesforce, which was primarily a CRM, has formed a CDP as well. So the different ways around it. So the ones I've come across are Treasure Data, Segment, and mParticle. So those are the main three that I've come across of late.
So earlier you mentioned data clean rooms, which I've never heard of. Would you mind just explaining what these are, how they work, and kind of what the value is for the brand or retailer?
Yeah, so data clean room is all about user privacy and how brands and publishers can bring data together. Can bring data securely together without moving or exposing the underlying data. So it provides controls in data access, ensuring privacy measures are adhered to. So that once you have all the data sets in place, then you can utilize it for different use cases such as segmentation, measurement, reach and frequency, media measurement, customer journeys, and activation. At the moment, the way the landscape's built is you've got your independents and you've got your big players. So you've got the data. So the likes of Google, Facebook, and Amazon have a data clean room. Then you've got independents such as Infosum, Habu, and LiveRamp. So, for example, speaking, for an SME, for an e-com retailer who's selling heavily on Amazon, they'll have their own clean room, to say with Amazon Marketing Cloud, which is core. And within the cloud, Amazon will provide you all the different data sets, from Prime data to advertising data to all the different data points they have available. Then you can plug it in with your own sales and CRM data, and it'll give you a better understanding from how to optimize your ad campaigns to supply chain and logistics as well. So so as a brand, you're utilizing your own rich data set with Amazon's rich data set as well. And for a small e-com retailer, that could be transformative in that way. Where I think, from example speaking, is maybe where I find it quite interesting is it probably allows you to start building second-party partnerships away from the world of third-party cookies. For example speaking, you can have an e-com retailer working with the Times, who are both using an independent data clean room, and they could start query, and they could query for customers who have visited the Times but haven't purchased from the e-com retailer in the last 6 months. Then you go and activate a campaign against that segment. So example speaking is, for you, Paul, you could be a purchaser of Nike, but you haven't bought anything from them for the last 6 to 12 months, but you're a subscriber on the Times, and you visit them on a regular basis because they can see your frequency. Then they can go and activate a campaign against you or that specific kind of segment on the Times. Because both the retailer, Nike, example speaking, and the Times have both the data sets in a clean room as well. And also, I would expect more and more publishers will start having their own clean rooms as well in the future. So that's where if you go back to the whole Martech ecosystem, having your TMS, having your marketing data warehouse solution, your cloud solution, and your CDP becomes the core, then you can plug and play with different clean rooms. So those three tech depends how you utilize your data warehouse and your CDP, then you can utilize the clean room. But it does require for you to be able to go and use the data clean room to have your data in good order. And if you think about 4-box matrix, the data clean room is probably right at the top in the right-hand box. So it requires quite a bit of maturity.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then last question. So what kind of factors or decision trees should e-com retailers follow when they're deciding on how to approach the CDP? So whether that's a market leading kind of out of the box vendor versus, sticking with their existing CRM or BI and kind of maybe pushing it a little bit harder and maybe not having access to those same kind of features.
Yeah, so I do see more, and I've heard more, and I think we previously mentioned it, the CRM and BI could form the element of a CDP. And in a way, it can help you maybe prove the value of moving to a CDP eventually, or it could be the solution that you utilize. I guess with the CRM, with the BI, and the evolution of data clean rooms, you potentially don't really maybe need to go and invest into a independent CDP platform. Where I think where businesses need to weigh up is the pros and cons and the cost of having a CDP or utilizing CRM and BI. So it comes up to around people, resources, and skills, which massively dictate this decision. So one area where I think CDP does provide value, which is probably overlooked, is looking at from an operation efficiency point of view. So look at reducing working time on manual tasks. Ability to turn around and activate campaigns quite quickly, depending on what's happening at a certain point in time, and improving workflows. Because I guess you're working with a tech working with a tech of a CDP, who's going to have advanced workflows and processes that you don't need to worry about. If you don't have a CDP, then you in essence that becomes quite a manual process as well. So those are the different areas I would look at. But ultimately, a lot of it still comes back down to understanding your data, understanding your measurement and analytics around it. And that becomes still core to deciding what you're doing. So, and the control and the thing around the CDP is CDPs allows you to build customer journeys. So it's built on first-party data. It allows you to go and talk across SMS, email, display, fraud, all those different channels, where if you do it from a non-CDP point of view, you don't necessarily get that control. Just I guess you need to weigh up what does one give you, what does one solution give you and not give you. But a lot of it will come down to people, resources, and skill. So the challenge is, I guess, is for certain businesses, they won't have the cost to be able to deploy a CDP because the costs are significant, where a CRM and BI can give you a lot of it, but obviously then you need the resources behind you as well.
Excellent. I'm going to throw in a lovely curveball question for you, which is, what if you had no limitations and you were in charge of an e-commerce Martech setup? Which tools would you use and why? Like, what are your go-to tools that you just find work really well together? So from tag management upwards towards data warehouses, data layers, other marketing automation tools.
That's a good question. So I guess, I'm a big fan of Tag Manager, Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. I still think, you do utilize that. The curveball out of that side of it is now with Google Analytics give you a free connected to BigQuery. Obviously, it's not free because obviously you have to pay for the query and the data. Then it comes to, I'm a big fan of, as much as I'm a big fan of Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager and the whole Google solution, I'm a big fan of independent tech as well, away from GAFA. And like I mentioned, Ringside, I do think Ringside have a very good solution. in there. I think Russ also thought of a solution that can meet your requirements in different ways. And I believe they utilize the Google Cloud Platform as well. So the challenge is, one thing is where are you going with your cloud solution? Because I'm sure you've seen, James, where businesses utilize multiple different cloud platform solutions from Azure to Redshift to Google Cloud as well. So, I guess I think that's probably one conversation businesses need to be having. Is the business happy to have a different solution for the marketing data warehouse capabilities compared to the rest of the business? So that's a slightly another conversation around that side of it. So what I would have is, I would have your TMS, I have Google Tag Manager, I have your Google Analytics, I'll have an independent measurement solution. So it could be Ringside or could be another one, but just have that independent view. That's in essence, that's where I think your growth is going to be coming from. Then once you have that part of your ecosystem, then it just depends where you want to go with. So ignoring the marketing, I do think you do need to have a marketing data warehouse, but it just depends where you want to play with and where you're going with as a business in terms of which cloud partner are you working with. Is it going to be Google because you are utilizing Google Analytics 4 and that's going to be a BigQuery? And if you're working with an independent measurement provider, what do they utilize? Are they using Google Cloud? So is it easy to plug in, or can they also provide you the data into your own marketing data warehouse as well? Then from there, in terms of your CDPs, I guess all depends on your requirements in terms of that. So there is like Segment, there is mParticle, there's Treasure Data, there's Media Merithics. I can't pronounce that. Media Merithics. There is Lexa. So there's so many different CDPs out there. It just depends where you want to go with. What are your requirements? Then, in terms of the data clean rooms, there's enough out there, but that's also going to be a growing area. But I think from having your TMS, your analytics, your measurement, and your cloud solution, that becomes your core and your pivot to everything. Then from there, it just depends on what your business requirements are. And potentially, once you have your core and your pivot, you don't need to worry about others. It becomes literally a plug and play, because your tag management becomes your central thread in terms of your technical requirements. Then you got your analytics, then you got your measurement, and you got your marketing data warehouse. Then from there you can just work with any other platform, solution, or tech as you wish, whenever you wish. So I can't give a specific answer in terms of which tech is the right one, because there's so many different requirements around to it. But you could potentially not need to work with any of them at any given time. It depends on business requirements and business needs.
Spoken like a true consultant there. I'd expect no other, which it always, it depends, but qualified with the reason for why it depends. It's a phrase we all love. Excellent. Look, thanks, Dipesh. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts. If people have got any more questions, or maybe people have got more technical questions where they want to deep dive into some of the answers you've given, how do they contact you?
A couple of ways. So there's my website, which is just my name, dipeshshah.com. Or just find me on Twitter, which is Mr. Dipesh A. Shah.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. And thanks to everybody for listening. As always, keep your ear open for the next episode. Let us know of any topics or guests you'd like us to feature. Do subscribe, and we'd love a rate on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Take care, everybody. For more information on this topic, head over to replatform.fm for our audio podcasts. To discuss a project, or if you'd like to chat about any of the topics covered in this episode in more detail, please reach out to myself, James Gurd, or my co-host Paul Rogers via LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks again for listening, and keep your ears peeled for the next episode.